We've got Craig Schroeder with us,
Hello.
Heather Rose, and Harvey Hoffman, and it's going to be moderated by Nathan Solomon today. And they will tell you more about their backgrounds and then get into listen to your questions. Well, feel free to cut in with questions. I certainly have questions, so you should too. Thank you.
So I guess I'll throw out this, starting with Craig and then asking everyone to introduce themselves briefly. And I have a couple of things that I ask you to include in your self-introduction. One is kind of, just so we have an idea of scale, of how many things you're doing and how many investments you've made in startups since the beginning of last year. What is your ideal investment? And I guess also, were you the lead investor on those, or how does that tie in for you?
Okay, sure. Well, it's fine to have a microphone. There's only a few of us here, so I guess we're recording it, so we should have mics. So good evening, everybody. My name is Craig Schroeder. I'm an investor with Robinhood Ventures here in Philadelphia, and I was a corporate guy. Now I'm dressed corporate today, but I was at a meeting up in New York this morning, which is why I'm looking like this. I was a corporate guy for many years in Wilmington, Delaware, and then joined Nathan. So I've been doing this this is my 10th year, and it's been a great introduction to and a great chance to participate in a number of very successful and very innovative companies that have been led by people who, in many ways, are like all of you, someone who starts off with an idea for an entrepreneurial company and figures out a way to go from the idea to a prototype to execution, pulling the team together. I usually personally, I'm part of a group, so we're a group of 50 people. I was smart enough to realize that I'm not that smart in terms of this. I'm not as smart as 50 people for sure, and so I learned a lot from, and I always do continue to learn a lot from talking about investments that we do with each other. And we also syndicate our deals, which means that when we're investing in something, we invest alongside other investors. We invest alongside Ben Franklin Technology Partners, which is a government-private partnership, which you might have heard of here in Pennsylvania, that drives innovation and entrepreneurship with the goal of creating good jobs in Pennsylvania and also creating viable, growing businesses. We've probably invested in several deals that you've been involved in, and we invest with, we work with all of the universities and a great number of different venture capital groups here in Philadelphia. So it's very collaborative. It's very it's a community that leans on each other for help with checking out other companies and comparing best practices and so forth. In terms of the perfect ideal company we want to invest in, we could probably spend a few hours talking about that topic, but to say it in a very brief way, a good idea is important, but the most important thing is the investor herself or himself, the team, the management team that they put together. We would much rather, I think this is pretty common for investors to tell you, we would much rather invest in a top-notch team that has a product that we're not sure is going to be successful versus the other way around. Because the nature, we'll get into this later, but the nature of entrepreneurship is you start off investing, you start off with an idea, you start off building something, and nothing ever turns out the way you think it's going to. So the big challenge is, can I invest in a company where the management team is able to handle those bumps in the road, those unexpected detours, all the problems that come up that cause most entrepreneurial companies to fail. If they can handle that, then they will pivot, they'll make a change in their strategy, they'll make even a change in their product or their service, maybe even make a change in their management team in order to keep going in the right direction. So that's the type of company that I look for, a company with a good idea, but most importantly, a really terrific, resilient, coachable management team behind it.
Hey everybody, can you hear me? You can probably hear me without this. I have 6 brothers and sisters, so you've then learned to talk. You need a lot of brothers and sisters. Yeah.
You need a microphone for the video.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think my voice is so loud, actually.
I think it's right.
So my name is Heather Rose. My background is in molecular biology. Initially, I have a PhD from Penn's Medical School in molecular biology. I worked in gene therapy with the gene therapy teams there that have now gone on to do some wonderful things. I worked at the time on some trials that were going on in Europe in children that were born without adaptive immune systems, and then were cured for, they were very critically ill children, technically the bubble kids, and then they were cured by gene therapy, and then they developed leukemia as a result of the therapy, many of them in the trial. Then they were treated, they're all cured again. So at the end of the day, the children were cured, and if they had not been treated successfully, they would have not survived. So it was a roller coaster, but it was a very interesting and emotional project to be involved in. When I finished up my PhD, I decided to go to law school. So I went to law school and majored in intellectual property. I worked at GSK's corporate intellectual property department while I was in law school. And then after I left law school, I've almost exclusively worked with academic institutions, helping them manage and out-license their patent estates since 2011. So it's funny when you said, tell us about what you invested. I really do consider us investors, and I consider us the earliest and most riskiest investors. And, I try to get that honestly through the minds of the people who are licensing stuff, even if they're starting a startup, when they're resistant to us getting a piece of the upside. Well, you just funded the IP. Well, yeah, we just funded the IP, but if you didn't have that IP, there'd be nothing for you to license, number one. And number two, we funded the IP before you probably had a product, before you probably had proof of concept data. I could go on and on. So I do think that we're investors. We're incredibly early investors, and we bear the brunt of risk. We file. I really wish our paralegal in the office was here, because her mind is a trap on the numbers. I want to say we file provisional, probably between 50 to 75 provisionals a year. Maybe, but like any investor, that doesn't count all the stuff that we decide not to move ahead on. So there are things that come to us that we decide that they are not patent worthy, they're not patentable, they are not marketable, that we, for one reason or another, don't see it as a strategic investment when we have all these other things in our queue. And so that's the balance of what we do. And I work mostly with people like these two guys when I'm trying to get a project to the next step. And the next step for me is usually helping convince them that they're going to make some money off of investing. Investors, that's what they do with their money. And building out backwards from, well, here's what I have, would you have any interest? What would you like to see? And helping them kick the tires and figure out the liabilities in the project that maybe we can fund internally, fund with other stuff to get it to a point that they might be interested. Or maybe they're already interested, and then if they are interested, what are they funding? Where are we taking it? Sometimes I have a great technology and I have no team. When that happens, I love to go to these guys because they know the entrepreneur who's looking right in the area. Oh, like this guy just finished, he just had a great exit from his other company and he wants to try again. So that's kind of the ways that we interface.
Hi, I'm Harvey Hoffman. My path is a little different than everybody else's here, but briefly, I spent my first career founding and being a partner in several businesses here in the Philadelphia region. They are all over the place as far as industries, so that leads me to the question, which is, what do I look for in a company to invest in? I don't care. I yield to Craig. It's all about the team. It's all about the people, their passion, because if anybody wants to know about the way in which early stage companies change, you should read the story about Curelate here in Philadelphia. It's a unique story about a team that got a lot of money and then decided they couldn't deliver the venture that they had gotten funded, went to their investors, told them that they wanted to give the money back, and the investors said, go find another concept. And they did. But over the last few years in my second career, I've become a mentor, advisor, and investor in very early stage companies. I'm very much involved at Temple and their Innovation Entrepreneurship Institute. I'm a board member of Atlantic Diamond Ventures. I am an investment committee member for Ben Franklin Technology Partners. And most of the companies that I get involved with are certainly earlier than what Craig sees at Robinhood Ventures, and in fact, my goal is often to get them in front of groups such as Robinhood and other early stage CVC companies.
And I guess part of the reason I was asking about the numbers of investments is to get an idea for people here who have businesses and as they kind of come toward you guys. And I mean, that's kind of a lot of that. So there's kind of like a mass that you're doing. And I know Ben Franklin does a whole lot, and they've had recent announcements about the volume. And I guess the question is, like, I know that with your angel group, is it the largest angel group in the region, or like?
It's in that.
Yeah. So I'm curious about you as an individual. Like, how many startups have you taken a piece in over this time? And like, do you think? And what are your feelings on taking a lead position in those sorts of investments? And just kind of like, because you're kind of a different position, where I think that people who are doing startups would, in a way, it's exciting to come to you. And I want to know, like, when they should feel like they should come, and what the odds are, and like how much you can do.
Okay. Well, to give an answer to a question like that, I'd like to sort of put myself in your shoes and be thinking about the earliest stage, when you have an idea, you have an interest in building a company, you maybe have some people that you trust and you know you can work with as business partners to get a company off the ground. Maybe you'll do it yourself, but chances are you'll do it with one or two other people that have skills that are complementary to your skills. So I think of it in terms of stages, and there's not really any clearly defined differential between these various stages. They're just kind of guidelines of the way we talk about investments in the investing community. So you first have at the very earliest, it's kind of the idea stage. And some of you I've talked to already are in that idea stage. You have something you think has some potential. Maybe you're putting together, maybe you think you yourself have some potential to be leading a company like this. Maybe even have a couple of people that you know that you might be able to collaborate with. So you're in that kind of very, very early idea stage. There's a lot of people that start off in that stage and never get beyond that stage. So the fact that you're here means that you feel strongly enough to take a couple hours or an hour or so on your Wednesday night to come and talk about these kinds of topics. So that's great. That's the idea stage. And then you get into what I would think of as the prototyping sort of a stage, and maybe in a more serious way, pulling a team together. Now these days it's a lot easier to make prototypes because you can make 3D prototypes on computers, and you can use some resources you may have here at the university or at community, like maker workshops or so forth to build prototypes. But you're going to want to. You also may be looking at a company that is not necessarily making a physical thing. I mean, a lot of businesses, of course, are in service businesses, and the software type businesses are something we all deal with every day. But there are also a lot of services, that business-to-business type services, or so forth. So you can create prototypes of those kinds of things as well. And we can talk later, if you like, about ways to prototype service businesses. And then I think at some point you realize I need a little more money than I personally have in my beer fund or my pizza fund or whatever it is. And so that's when you would enter what we would think of as a friends and family stage. So at that point you're leaning on your credit cards, your job, your whatever money you have saved, and then at some point you say, all right, I need to talk to my parents, I need to talk to my brothers and sisters, I need to talk to my uncle who has some extra money, can I start to pull together some really very early funds to create this prototype, or to create a chance to get out in front of potential customers, even on a very, very limited basis, and give this thing a try. So, idea stage, friends and family stage. So now let's say you get into the product, you get a little bit of money from your friends and family, and you have this prototype now. You start to find some potential customers and say, what do you think about this? Would you use a product like this? Maybe even find somebody who's willing to buy it. Or someone who's willing to try it out. More likely, someone who's willing to try it out for free to give you feedback on what they like about it and what they don't like about it. I think then at that point you would enter into what we think of as the seed stage. And again, there's no magical line, but generally if you have a prototype and you have some potential beta customers, even if they're not paying, you don't have any revenue coming in yet, you're heading into the stage where you're now getting ready to talk to some folks.
Let me just ask you, I think some people may not be as familiar with kind of those initial metrics that you're looking at, but there's certainly, how many people do you want to see on something or revenue, what, before someone feels like they want to take up your time, Can you just set some rough things in? And I know it varies a lot, but.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's actually, the next step is to start to talk to people like us. Once you're at that point where you have, so here's what I would look for. I would look for a decent management team. It's not going to be just you. It's going to be you and somebody else and a third person, maybe even a fourth person, who are going to be working together on this thing. Because everybody has complementary skills. So first thing, a management team put together. Second thing, the product and service and product, same thing. You're trying to solve somebody's problem. You're trying to give something to someone that they really need. So you have to have either a prototype of this or a number of customers who are actually willing to try it out and do that. And then third, and really equally important, is you have to have a plan of how you get from where you are today to where you need to be. Typically, you start something very small. You start with a very small group of customers, and then you try to grow it in your immediate, it depends what industry you're in, but in your immediate neighborhood or in your immediate circle of whatever your community is. And then over time, you're going to want it to be something that people are buying all throughout the neighborhood, and all throughout Philadelphia, and then eventually all throughout the region. And every step of growth that you have that comes along like that requires money. So direct answer to your question, by the time you get to us, we would be looking for the management team, an idea, hopefully with some patent protection or some kind of a barrier to entry from someone else copying the idea. Your management team, a prototype, and ideally some customers who are out there trying it, using it, liking it, that we can talk to and say, okay, why are you using this product? Why do you think this is so great? And why do you think that everyone in Philadelphia or everyone in your niche, whatever that niche might be?
Heather, how do people engage with you? I mean, it's like you talk directly to, how is there kind of a position in which people in this group can work with you toward their next stages?
Oh yeah, totally. My card's here. Come grab it if you want to talk to me. So I only do my job right through volume. So I have to, I want to kind of hear what everybody's doing. I mean, it's not practical all the time, but I encourage people to loop me in on what they're doing. The reason is dual. One is I want to see the great ideas. I don't want to not have an idea get my attention just because somebody didn't know I existed, didn't know what my office doesn't know what my office does, and how we can help. And then the other reason is that we are an academic institution, and therefore we have an obligation to publish. And this is a little bit more so on the the academic side, where you're not going to get grants to do your research. So just to super quick finish up the thought. So I do encourage them to get to me so that the idea doesn't go out the door, because one of the bars of patentability is dedicating your idea to the public by making a public disclosure without a patent in place, which ruins patentability anywhere in the world except for the United States, and that first can really, on the US you only get 1 year, I should say, from that point, that can just blow a project apart from a funding standpoint.
Just to understand the role of your office is like, with people to people, because you do a lot of patents. Are those all patents largely from professors and doctoral candidates that are?
So our office actually has two roles. One is innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And we have a relatively new VP of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that office helps people take ideas to fruition. That is the idea side of our office. They help them, think it out, if it's not the right market, if it's not the right device. And then I manage more academic stuff. Generally, there is always going to be places where we bleed through with one another. But so I do more of the academic stuff, but we definitely do work.
So the fellow that I guess it was here, the fellow's getting chicken fingers now. When he was talking about his patent, if it were in health, would that be a relevant thing to come to your office for? Or
the sector is irrelevant.
Sector is irrelevant. So it could be anybody, but it's within the university, so it's anybody in the community.
We are an office that I consider the community, people I am supporting. I cannot always promise you a patent. I can't promise you a patent for a lot of reasons. Some of them are going to be strategic, right? Some of them are going to be patent law, and others are going to be about, you know, us feeling, you know, what are, you know, I don't promise people patents. There's a lot of reasons. But I can promise you, if you come to us, we will give you some modicum of support. And you know, if you have an idea and you need to get farther, then you go through the innovation entrepreneurship side. We help people with just ideas, and I don't care about the sector.
I promise, after I just ask a couple more questions, and I'll put questions to the audience, and see how many questions you have. Fill in. But Harvey, I wanted to ask you, because like when I last was involved with kind of soliciting VC, it was a long time ago, and at that point people weren't that interested in physical materials, and I see you do stuff with NextFab, and you do stuff with a lot of people who are doing like physical things. And it's clearly like the Internet of Things and everything, and then kind of with folks here who are doing a lot of physical creation. I'm curious about how you look at businesses that are that involve things, and how you look at them scaling, because they're kind of different than software-only initiatives. And I also know that Ben Franklin has some specific funding for, they really did, at least a year ago, specific funding for manufacturers to subsidize some prototyping. Are you still doing that?
Okay, multifaceted question.
Like everything about it.
Let me take the last one first, and then I'll move forward. Ben Franklin basically originally had 3 silos here in Philadelphia. They have an IT silo, they have a medical device and medical sciences group, health sciences group, and then they have what they call physical sciences. Each of those have their own investment criteria, and they each work with their own companies or interview and put through their sources, their own companies. What you also are referring to is Ben Franklin also has become, because of the fact that they are well known in the investor community, and Craig will back me up about this, they do a tremendous job of what is called due diligence. Just a segue, due diligence is the process by which investors deeply evaluate the companies that are looking for investment funding. And it runs the gamut from looking at the team, to looking at the financial performance, to looking at the product, to interviewing customers, to interviewing vendors. It's a very, very involved process, and Ben Franklin is known for doing a really significant and good job at doing that. And so Ben Franklin today also has shared pools of money beyond its original state money with, I've lost count, 6 or 7 different other groups that have put up funding, co-funding with Ben Franklin, whereby Ben Franklin does the due diligence and then participate in deals. So there are many like that. One of them is manufacturing or physical products, as you mentioned. And there are many others in the community today. You asked me. I'm sorry.
I was asking, I guess part of it was, I think Craig was talking a little bit more on the software side. I was curious about how you look at like physical product.
Okay. Again, I look at many. I'm not limited by the companies that I look at because of the background that I have. From the early stages of companies that are product oriented, it really is about the development stage of the product. It's all the other fundamentals too. It's the team, it's where they come from, what their capabilities are. Have they built a plan? Do they understand their market? Do they have a financial projection? But it really becomes more about, really a lot about customers. In other words, have they really done the customer discovery? And that means talking to your customers, talking to your potential, those that potentially are your buyers, identifying who those buyers are. And really understanding what their needs are and incorporating that into your product development. Too many companies, especially years ago, developed all kinds of products and then found that they didn't have a market for it. So that's really critical. That's what I would look for in companies that are specifically product oriented, is have they really done their homework, and is there really, in my opinion, a market and a clear customer beyond just a user, because the users and customers are different, we'll get into that later, for their product. And do I believe that they have a product that is scalable? Is the market large enough? And does it make sense to get behind it?
Actually, I'm getting user and customer quickly now.
Yeah, user and customer. Too many times people misunderstand who their customer is because their customer is really their user. The user is really what it says, who uses the who uses the product. The customer is who really buys the product. And often those are not the same. And you really need to consider that when you're looking at what your market is and you go put together your business plan. Because too often people come to investors or they come into this environment and they really don't know the difference between their user and their customer.
I have a great example there. I'm going to have to scale it back on the details because I don't want to have this person see the video and go, "Just talk about me." But I had somebody come to me with a device that a physical therapist would use. And the physical therapist would use it in their office. They posited to me that their market was every person who would walk in to a physical therapy office. But no, you're only going to sell one or two devices to the question is, how many physical therapy offices are there that do the relevant kind of therapy that they would need your device? It's not, how many humans in the United States have elbows. Like we all, it's very important to keep it bounded.
It actually applies to the mention I'm referring to. It's toys, so parents will be the customers and the kids will be the users.
And it's probably
that's a very typical thing that you get because the buyer is often different than the user. It gets a lot more complicated in certain business models where it's not exactly clear of the difference. The other thing is often we see a lot of businesses and ventures that are about marketplaces, matching buyers to sellers in one way or another. And often the user and the buyer get reversed as the business model matures because it's not clear at the beginning who the real buyer is or who the real target is and who the real customer is versus who the user is. I'm involved in one of those right now that just flipped upside down.
Yeah.
And it might be a certain kind of parent too. It's going to keep, right. It will, probably not every parent. Probably it's a, parent of a kid this age, in a particular region, certain kind of kid.
So I'll just ask you to finish up that, and then I'll ask questions to the audience. So at what stage, is it sort of the same stage that Greg was talking about, that people should come to you? Is it, and is it different for different things? Because again, I was asking, there's I think a $5,000 prototyping program that Ben Franklin had a couple of years ago. I don't know if they still have it. They're kind of different programs. Sounds like no, but
well, there's many different funding programs. I mean, we're lucky here in the city to have NextFab because they have a lot of resources. They've also started their own incubator, which is
they just announced their first group.
they're on their third group now. But again, those are a little more developed companies. But some of those companies actually came out of some of the early work they did at NextFab itself, and some did not. For me personally, I personally, because of my association with several universities, I'm involved here as well. I have office hours here once a month and twice a month. I do a temple as well. But I get involved personally fairly early with companies. I see companies coming in throughout the entire ecosystem here in Philadelphia, through idea competitions, through early stage pitch competitions, through entrepreneurship presentations at the universities here at Temple, at Drexel, at Penn. And I tend to get involved with people who I kind of enjoy or who I get to meet and who again, who I believe can be successful. It doesn't always work, but that's really my qualification and how I get involved. And then hopefully I will work with them through their early stages, help them really develop their strategic and business models. And if they really have something that's valuable, we'll hopefully get them to the stage where they can get beyond their friends and family and into their seed stage and actually get that first investment from outside investors.
So does anybody have a question?
I think somebody asked what next step is. Do you ask that?
No, I know it.
Oh, okay.
I actually didn't know that you were in there. So
Have you used Next 5 for your invention?
I had considered it, but I don't know.
Well, you can do it yourself. It's only a $35 fee or whatever. You just have to go down there and build it yourself.
I mean,
That's a great thing about Next 5. I mean, it's a shared space. I mean, it's a membership fee, which is minimal every month, and you can go down there and use all of the equipment to build your own prototype. And there is help along the way if you're going to
yeah, that's definitely like my thing is that I do need a lot of help. I feel directions most of the time.
Are you a single founder of the company or of the?
It's not a company. I'm just the idea guy. I have a lot of ideas. I have two right now that I really think are viable and workable. But I still don't really have somewhere to really go with them. But it sounds like
You need other people.
it sounds like I need other people. But I was really focused on finding like kind of more of a mentor or more of a person or a few people to direct me where to go.
You should definitely check out the networking opportunities, Rachel.
It's not about telling you where to go, it's about getting it done. You can't, I mean, other people are not going to do it for you. And that's why finding other people that can be your co-founders or work on the product together who have the skills that you don't have will help you to further develop your idea. Maybe you don't have the skills to build the product, but maybe if you find somebody else, maybe they have the skills to go to a Next Time or go somewhere else and physically know the engineering or know how to run a machine or know how to do 3D CAD work or whatever, and they can help you together to get to a stage where you're further along and can then carry it beyond that.
It's such an important point to think about, where are you strong and where are the gaps in your abilities? And no matter how terrific everybody is, we all have areas where we are a lot better and areas where we're not so great. So when you're thinking about putting together a team, it's important to be honest with yourself and figure out, what are the things that I like to do, that I'm good at, that I'm hopefully above average at compared to other people I know, and what are the things that, I do them because I know I need to do them, but it's not something that I love. If you don't love doing it, you're not going to want to do it in an entrepreneurial setting. It's especially at the stage that some of you guys that I've talked to so far might be at. If you are putting together a group, be honest with yourself. Yes, it's important to work with people you trust, and it's important to work with people that you like, but it's equally as important for those two things in working with people that have skills that are complementary, different from, but needed compared to your skills. And that's part of that is being introspective enough and being knowing yourself well enough to know, I can do this part if I have to, but I'd love to have someone else work on that side, and then find that someone else and have them work with you.
And super quick, if you don't mind. You got me thinking, I mean, for you in particular, it sounds like you have an idea and you don't know what to do. You don't quite know what to do. Right now, I'd say, I'm just guessing that you're relatively young.
You could say
right now, in your life, I think it is just so important that you get out there and meet people and build friendships. And you say, well, I can't get to Next Step. Reach out to them and ask if anybody carpools from here. Or do you have anybody up in my region? Could I reach out to them about, catching a ride with them from time to time? Talk to the chamber, get on the Chamber of Commerce, listserv for events. Go to Philly Tech Expo. You got to start putting out the feelers. These law firms that have supportive events. That's where you go there, and then they have networking events, and then you get the cards, and you get on the listservs, and you, whatever kind of community page they have, you reach out for sharing rides, and meet as many people as possible, because that's how you're going to find the person you're going to gel up with. It's not just going to be that you're going to go to some speed dating event and meet the right person. You're going to have an organic relationship develop with somebody who feels like you guys could rub brain cells together and see sparks.
You familiar with Philly Meetup?
I've heard of it. I think I looked it up. I didn't.
Philly Meetup is a great opportunity to meet other people that are sharing the dream of starting companies, building companies, and there's a dozen different meetup groups with different verticals or different, features or functions or concentrations, I should say. It's a great place to meet people. There are meetups probably 3 or 4 times a week. There's small ones, there's big ones, but that's a good place in this community here in Philadelphia to figure out who's doing what, where they're doing it, and what their skills are.
I would just jump in again. I know you have a question, but you guys got me thinking about a lot of subjects here that I wanted to mention to you guys. One is that the entrepreneurial mindset is built on the idea of overcoming obstacles. So don't ever say to yourself, you can't do something, or I'm not able to, or that's not going to work. You've got to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be able to, you're going to run into so many, over and over again, obstacles, roadblocks, detours, things that don't even make any sense, things where you're expected to go do something you've never had any idea of how to do it, and you have to kind of wing it. I mean, you have to sort of, while you're young and doing all this stuff and getting started and thinking about the life of an entrepreneur, the life of an entrepreneur is a life of overcoming obstacles. And it's about knowing that you're going to be operating in a situation where you have less than perfect information, knowing that you're going to be operating in a situation where there's going to be constant frustrations and roadblocks. But that's okay. And knowing that you're probably going to try things and they're going to fail is, in a way, if you know that's going to happen already, it can be a little bit liberating to say, okay, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to try this. And I've talked to successful entrepreneurs who said, they look back and they laugh and say, yeah, that first company I started, I was in college, and boy, that was a complete mess, but I learned so much from it. And that's the way you got to be thinking when you want to be an entrepreneur. And the other thing is something that Elias and I talked about on the way in before we got started with the meeting, which is that a lot of people will say, I've got this really good idea. And this is a great idea that, I don't even want to tell people the idea that it's so good. And I don't want to have anyone violate their disclosure or cause themselves any patent problems. But you should also keep in mind, this is maybe another one of those tough love kind of things, the idea is like 10% of the success of the company. There's so many good ideas out there. I know, like my wife's grandpa had this great idea for this thing, and someone else went out and did it 20 years later. He's like, that was my idea. It doesn't matter. There's so many good ideas out there. Investors are not interested in good ideas. Investors are interested in good ideas that are paired with skillful, relentless, optimistic, obstacle-overcoming execution. Being able to actually get out there and make it happen. The person who makes it happen will be successful. And frankly, if you look back on all the good ideas that are out there, Thomas Edison didn't invent any of that stuff. Steve Jobs didn't invent any of that stuff. Elon Musk didn't invent any of that stuff. Those are people that identified ideas that they thought that they could run with. And they had the determination to go out there and say, yeah, I'm going to do this, even though everyone tells me I'm a lunatic for doing it, even though everyone puts roadblocks in my way, even though everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. You have to be able to have that kind of a mindset. That's what really makes a difference. And that kind of a mindset put into practice is what investors, people like us, are interested in seeing when we're sitting out there and you're sitting up here.
I think I'd throw in too, from the startup side of things, is this is the first barrier of this type, is can you convince one other person this is a really good idea and they should put time toward it? If you can't, and you never get that one other person and that 2 other people, you're never going to get to explaining to Craig why this is a great idea, because he's, if there isn't, you can't find in the whole world one other person who's great and useful that believes he's not.
There's something wrong with you, or there's something wrong with the idea.
Well, yeah.
Really,
it's usually
one other
idea.
person won't get involved, then that's a big sign.
Yeah, that's a sign about the idea, right? Because it has to be good enough to sell a random person that loves you, right? And then it's maybe your family loves you and you sell them. So you have these 2 easy sells first. And then you get into a little bit harder, then you get to these guys, and And they're very nice and they're very positive because you might be a genius. So they're never going to be mean to you because you might have the idea that when they see it, it's fantastic. But at the same time, if you can't pull it together with these early, easy rounds of effort, then you won't get it.
At the same time, remember, and Craig alluded to it, which is, as investors, we see the same idea dozens and dozens of times in one flavor or another, but fundamentally the same idea. At the end of the day, it's the person, it's the group, it's the founder, it's the team, those people that can really execute. And as a good friend of his often tells me, when you have this going on, somebody will win. Facebook won. You know how many companies like Facebook were out there at the time? There were dozens of them. Somebody will execute, somebody will run faster than anybody else, somebody will dedicate 24/7 every day of their working life to the idea, and they will win. And all the others, some of which maybe had been further along, maybe had a better platform, maybe they're going to go by the wayside because somebody will win the space.
Well, my name is Arthur, Industrial Design student. I have a question about just want to hear your opinion, guys, on ideation. Because there's a popular thing that you should share your idea with everyone else, but you can drag a lot of valuable insights out of it. And there is no original idea that's at the end of the idea. Even if somebody steals your idea and executes it, you should pretty much give them the whole thing, because he was able to put a good team together and actually dedicate 24/6, 24/7 to make it happen. So what do you guys think?
I'll just kick it off as a patent attorney. I just want to pontificate on the implications of certain kinds of sharing. Yes, you should share your ideas. You should share your ideas for all the reasons that we've been saying. You have to get buy-in. You have to get community buy-in. You have to vet customers, potential future customers, figure out who your market is. You have to find your partners. You have to throw your thing up in the air and see if it flies over and over and over and over again before you would even waste either of these guys' time. You can waste mine. But I want to state that there is a place where there's a line that you kind of want to keep in mind, which is that in the United States and every other country in the world, there are bars to patentability that arise from certain kinds of disclosures. When you're talking to collaborators, you're okay. When you're doing experimental work on something, you're okay. But if you are just posting like on YouTube, I've had this happen, somebody posted, one of their, then that's problematic. If you're within your institution, usually that's okay. There's a lot of places where even though it isn't expressly stated that the entire group is confidentially going to maintain everything in confidence, it can be assumed that your collaborators are going to work in your best, for the best efforts of the company, etc. So I would just say, if you don't know thing one, and also you could feed ideas to competitors, potential competitors, if you're really like broadcasting out loud too much. So I would just caution that you should be able to say what you're doing and working on in a way that is oblique enough that it doesn't belabor the details. I mean, I can't think of many inventions I've ever worked on where you really had to get that far into the weeds. And you don't know enough about what you're working on yet if you can't describe it in a way that doesn't destroy patentability. And if you really want to come sit with me for a little bit and talk about what is the real line in the sand for patentability, again, I recommend the book Patent It Yourself. It teaches a lot of the patent fundamentals. I know a lot of patent examiners have used it. Attorneys, and it's cheap on Amazon. Get a used copy, but just remember that patent laws changed a little bit over the past few years. And it's an older edition. But in any event, so yes, you have to get out there. You have to talk to people. Just don't go onto Facebook and be like, I've developed a new chemical entity and here's its structure. I figured out a way to make children run forever by this device that's this thing and this, just say, I have a device that I think is going to be great for making hyperactive kids pay attention, and it doesn't require X, Y, Z. Just some inducement. Have somebody say, I'm working on the same thing. And then you guys become collaborators, and that's more formal, and then you guys really start thinking about it.
The majority of companies that we see, okay, not you per se, really have nothing to do with patents. Okay? They have some intellectual property that really is the value and unique to them, and really is mostly about how do I get to market faster than the next thing. Okay? We often refer to it as the secret sauce, so to speak, but it's not necessarily protected. And it doesn't have to be, just as I said before about Facebook and the fact that we see 12 companies that all have the same idea. It doesn't have to be, it only has to, what's important is that you can develop the idea in a manner that will turn into a scalable business. Because remember, when you come to investors, nobody's signing a non-disclosure agreement. And people say, why would you sign a non-disclosure? Well, because it's real simple. Because we see dozens and dozens of deals every week. So many of them, as I just said, are the same. And we would have to make 32 pages of disclosures on your non-disclosure agreement about all the other companies that we have already seen that might have a similar technology to yours. It would just become untenable, it would become unworkable. So the important thing is if you have a real patentable technology, then you should at least take initial steps for initial filing and do those things early on before you share it broadly and then start to look at your customers. Otherwise, it's like figure out what that secret sauce is and build that into your business model and go and run with it.
Or one other little thing, you know, if somebody won't sign a confidentiality agreement and, you know, and you don't have a patent yet and you're not ready for a patent yet because you need to get more work done, just be cautious about the way you broadcast and make sure you have a bona fide, you know, interest in working together with somebody before you take those next steps, because then, and this is where we get into a fuzzy area, where it is my opinion, you could say, we are collaborating at that point, and they're co-inventor with you. You can't disclose something to a co-inventor. If they become a co-inventor, then you're around that problem. So, just don't broadcast it everywhere. Just,
in terms of the general value of that, I'm curious, to those who are less IP focused, what percentage of companies that you invest in have patents as some part of what they're doing?
Well, I guess I'd make a distinction between IP and a patent. I mean, when I think of a patent, and I know that's possible to have process patents, but I think about, you've invented something, and there's some scientific procedure in place for creating this thing. I know that's oversimplifying it, but that's the case in some cases. I think to answer something you had said earlier, or to follow up on that, Heather makes a great point here that you guys should think about. When you're describing your product, you always want to describe your service. You always want to describe it in terms of what it does for the user. You always want to describe it and why the customer wants to pay for it. You always want to describe it based on the effects. What problem does it solve? What benefit does it provide? You don't have to describe it, and actually nobody really cares as long as you know how to do it. You don't have to describe the scientific production method or the industrial process or whatever it is behind that. At some point there'll be a due diligence process and you can run through all that stuff. But people want to know how it's going to work. I mean, none of us know how our iPhones work, right? I mean, nobody could make an Android phone or an iPhone these days. No, nobody could. It's maybe a group of a giant corporation could. Even they, Apple relies on Samsung to make half their stuff. So
you need to know how it works in order to use it.
And that's the key point. You don't have to understand how it works in order to understand the benefit. And you don't have to understand a patent to understand how a company is going to create a service or a product that creates a tremendous benefit.
Part of my point was, I think when people are starting out, they hear investors talk about patents being important, and they think of it being a secret that they've come up with a thing. Yeah. And I think that when you have been doing this for a number of years, that for most things that aren't don't come out of university, it just doesn't come up as a question.
I didn't really answer your question very well because I got off on another tangent. But the answer to your question is how often does intellectual property come up? Intellectual property is important because it provides, you want to have some kind of barrier to entry. So you're either doing what we would call in the investment business a land grab, or you're trying to create, you know there's something out there that anybody can have access to, and you want to build enough critical mass with your product, you're meeting this need before everyone else who has a very similar product is going to meet the need. And you can think of businesses where, you know, McDonald's and Burger King, you know, whoever, are all meeting basically the same need, but McDonald's got there first, and that's why they're more successful. And that's the case in every business that we all have heard about. There's a land grab aspect to it. And then there's something that's fits in the broad category of intellectual property protection, which is there some other kind of a barrier that will prevent your competitors from just finding out, oh, you do this? Oh, great, we're just going to start doing this too and take your whole business away from you. So we do want to know that. We will ask you that question. You know, what prevents somebody else? And I'll tell you right now, a little secret. It's okay to say, nothing prevents somebody else from doing this. But we have the ability to out-hustle everybody. We're going to, and then have a process in place where you say, we have the right endorsements, or we work within a very niche community that is very tight-knit, and no one, once we start building our reputation, no one's going to get in, or whatever it might be. We do definitely want to see barriers to competition. That's critically important, but it does not have to come in the method of a formal patent.
Truthfully, I mean,
I don't have a chance to ask her a question after you're done.
No,
She's
truthfully,
trying a lot.
I see very few ventures that really have patents. Most of those ventures, what I work with, because it's not my space, most of those ventures are in medical devices, they're in pharma, there's some IT that may have some unique algorithm that is patentable, but for the most part, I don't see personally or get involved with a lot of companies that really have a patent. It's really what Craig said. It's about that IP and can you get to market and grab the market faster than anybody else.
It's also trade secret, Vortex,
Trade secret.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's trade secret.
I want you to have a chance, sorry.
Thank you. I mean, firstly, I would like to thank all of you for the valuable insights. It's very systematic. My name is Ritu, and I have a clothing company in India. We do handlock with clothing and scarves, and we solve the problem of generating employment among disabled girls and women. So my question is, what's the probability of investing in a handcrafted apparel company which is registered in India and does have some customers in the United States and in France?
Is your intention that this would be an Indian-based customer base, or is this a plan to import Indian-made products into the United States, or is it using your patterns here and replicating a model to be successful in India?
We do have a customer base in the United States. The question would be, like, the company is registered in India. Would that be of interest in getting invested?
I know an investor who might have an interest in your work, who is Indian himself and has a personal, strong interest in Indian stuff, and he imports products as well.
The answer to your question is, and we've spoken before, for most investors in the United States, they would want to see the company here. Your resources, your manufacturing capability, and other things might be in India, which is not that uncommon. But we would want to typically be able to have a corporate entity here in the United States that we can touch, feel, and feel comfortable with. For you in particular, as far as being investable, it will be about customers. You're going to really need to demonstrate customers and revenue in order to gain, because of the industry you're in, and I happen to know your industry, and have some experience investing in your industry. You're going to have to prove that there really is a market for your product that's large enough to interest investors.
The market in the United States.
The market could be anywhere. I mean, as long as she has enough customers. I don't care where the market is. It could be in India, it could be in Australia, it could be anywhere in the world. She's going to have to, because it's textiles, because it's clothing, whatever. I mean, it's really going to be about, do I believe that there's an interest, that there's a big enough market, a big enough buyer base, a big enough user base for your company, for your products, in order to make it really, is there a return for the investment? Because she doesn't really, it's not it's a different kind of play.
What do you need the investment for?
Expansion.
Expansion.
Yeah, I guess
She
my
needs for
following.
scalability.
Yeah. My following question. I've met Harvey sir earlier and discussed my idea. So I guess my following question would be: would the investment come in form of dollars, or does it also come in the form of manpower help? Like, I'm not able to do sales for my company here because I'm going to school to do that. So I'm wondering, like, does the investment also come in the form of manpower, or someone who can help do sales, or?
If you're on Shark Tank, it does. There's a clothing company that's like, I'm trying to get the QVC
You
angle.
need to build out the company. You need to have a company, employees, and yourself. And the other thing that keep in mind is, and we just had this conversation earlier today, one of the things that investors want is you, 24/7, 365 days a year. If you're not in all the way in your project, we're not interested in investing. Because, as we've said earlier here, we're investing in you more so than anything else about you.
I think when this advice goes out to everybody, if you are involved in a company where the primary customers are in another country and the primary production is in another country, and you're here and you're like, well, I want to still get involved in some of these resources. There are, for a number of companies, I don't know, a number of countries, there are Indian American or American Israeli or American, for various different countries where there's a lot of entrepreneurship. There are groups that you can talk with and work with where you have investors that have background in your company and your country, and are here and also have contacts back in your home country or where we're talking about. So there might be an angle there. Again, I don't know if that's your particular situation, but I know a lot of people who have had a specific interest in a country that's not the United States because that's part of their heritage. They're interested in investing in companies in that country. Question in the back. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me back here?
Louder.
All right, speak up.
Nice and loud.
Hi, my name is Christian. Just wanted to go a little bit back to clarify on something. But let's say I was like at a company and I was the idea guy for that company, and I had a product or something like that. But I didn't have the skills to create that product to make it into fruition. So I hire other people who have those skills. How do I determine my value then in creation of that product or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, and you'll probably hear a few different answers, but you have to think honestly about what your skills are. I think just be the idea guy isn't enough. I think that when you think about if your skills include strategy, business strategy, if your skills include managing the efforts of other people, bringing a team together, giving out assignments and working together with people. In other words, you go beyond being the idea guy into being more of a general manager, an operating manager. And then you start saying, well, that's the value that I'm adding because I have this person over here who's great at finance, and this person's great at sales, and this person's great at production. But I'm the person who's able to manage this whole thing and make it work. So a company as small as what we're talking about here probably wouldn't use the lofty term of CEO, but that's basically what it is. It's the person who's doing it.
Undogged reduction to practice guy when you're that early, right? Because I mean, you got an idea and you can't sell an idea. You got to get it to a point where you can say the thing, and that's the work. That's where you have to put in your sweat.
It's really not about hiring people. If you're really at that early of a stage, it's what we said earlier. It's you need to find co-founders. You need to find other people that complement your skill set. You need to build that team, and they need to be your equals. You may be the idea guy, but unless you've got really deep pockets and you can afford to pay people to do those jobs, which most people can't afford to do, that's what it's about. It's really finding and building out that team of 3, 4 people that have the complementary skill sets to your own, that will help you drive that idea into a viable business.
Something else to keep in mind is that anybody that's worth having in your team that's small has their own ideas too. So they're not like I have no ideas, I need someone with an idea. you could have the idea and the vision and be driving this and be like that force, but you need to be that force that pulls everyone together. There isn't a job that's just like having the idea and then people give you money. Just having, been there.
Yeah, I mean, the job is figuring out how to inspire everybody else and how to keep, when everyone else is discouraged and when everyone else is doing the 10,000 other things they have to do in their life because this isn't their full-time job yet, they're not making any money yet, to still keeping them engaged, to still keeping the team together, to figure out how to overcome obstacles. That's something that is giving real value. Be the idea guy, not giving no value.
And early on, go network. Like, that's the job. That's your job right now. Figure out where people who have this same passion you have congregate and talk to them and keep their cards. Get Scannable and Evernote and scan their cards and keep them on your, and just really, I really think it's incredibly important to remember that you should just consider yourself like the roots of a tree right now.
I would say to everybody, get in the habit of turning ideas into practice, even if it's on the smallest possible scale. Even if you sell one of something, just saying, I have this idea, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to try it. And I'm not going to wait until it's perfect and I have business cards, the website, and the app, and all that stuff. I have this idea, I'm just going to go see if I can sell it.
There is a for sale bar on patents.
What's that?
There's a for sale bar on patents too, so just saying. Keep that in mind.
All right, other questions?
So if you sell it before you patent it, you cannot get a patent. That's what I was trying to say. You intend.
So you guys mentioned like building a team, but how exactly you inspire them to continuously work, but if it's not their full-time job, like how do you get them to work for free?
Because they're your partners.
Why are you going to work for free?
You have to be prepared. There's two sides to building and then scaling a business. And I've had this conversation. The first is people have ideas. I was talking about. You sort of spend some time with it, and then you realize you've hit a wall and you need more help. You can't keep it all to yourself. When you build a team, those team members become families with you. That means everybody shares. Otherwise, they're employees and you have to pay them. They don't have to all share equally, but everybody has to share. Okay? And then the other side of that equation, or the next step in that equation, is you build this great idea, you take it, you start to take it to market, you've got customers, and now you want to go get invested. You have to be willing to exit. Okay? You need a passion to get from here to there, because if you don't have the passion, and if it's not an idea, whether it's yours or yours, if it's not an idea, if it's not beyond just an idea, it has to be a passion. Because you're going to beat yourself up to get from here to a place where it becomes a viable business. You've got to really be vested in what you're doing. You've got to love it. You've got to believe in it. But the next stage is, now you've done all that, now you need money from investors to go out and scale this thing up into a real business. And the first thing I'm going to ask you is, okay, are you prepared to exit? This is your baby. But you have to be prepared to sell it at some point down the road, because that's how we get our money back.
That's how you get your money out of it, too.
And that's how you get your money out of it. But for you, it's still, you could think, well, I'm going to run it forever and ever, and that's okay. They're called lifestyle businesses, and they're great. Just don't take investor money.
Yeah, just not for investors.
Okay? So, and that's, I always tell people when they come to me, they say, well, I want to, get investors. And I say, why? The worst thing in the world you can do is take in outside investor money. Because now, I don't care if they own 5%, you now belong to them. You now have to meet their expectations, and you have to, report to them, even though you own 95% of your company. So if you get to a point, if you can, tap more friends and family, or you can tap a bank loan or whatever.
Yeah, and there are investors who will take a loan, who will give you a loan with a 3x payback.
There's different kinds of funds.
There are other funds to do it without an exit, but it's usually not very attractive to an investor if they don't get a piece of a big change in control.
Why would an investor want a person to sell the company? want a piece of the pie, and pie lasts longer, but they just want to get rid of the pie.
Because they don't. We have equity. We have equity or warrants or some other form of equity in the business, and the only way we get our money back is if we can sell that equity.
We're not getting a percentage of the profits.
Right. We don't get a piece of the profits. We're not partners in your business. We're investors in your business.
Some will do that.
Well,
It's very rare.
Again, there are different.
And it is horrible for the company. That's why everybody hates Mr. Wonderful if you watch Shark Tank. Because he's always like going after revenue streams that are going to be critical for the company to stay alive.
So anyway, from a corporate point of view, we own equity in your company, and the only way for us to sell, it's not like selling, just like if you go buy GM stock. I can buy GM stock and I can sell it tomorrow because there's somebody that'll buy it. When I own a piece of your company, there's nobody that's going to buy it. Plus, it's close. There's all kinds of SEC rules we won't get into.
It's the best thing to do with compete with the public.
Well, that's one way. That's one exit for an investor to get their money out. But it's a very unusual.
There's SEC regulations.
Yeah, it's a very unusual exit for us because typically if somebody comes to an investor like at our stage and says, we're going to go IPO, basically we tell them to go home and do their homework because that's just so rare in the world we live in that you get an IPO. Now, there might be a sell or a strategic buyer, but again, that's still a sell. You still may lose control of it at that point, but I get my money back.
It's still a lot easier to swallow than an IPO.
Yeah, an IPO.
It happens. I've had, in my lifetime, I don't know how many licenses I've done. I think I've had 2 IPOs, maybe 3. I've had 4. And I've probably done like 100 licenses or related deals. And speaking of homework, in addition to networking, I would just recommend keeping yourself educated about what people are investing in, maybe the Wall Street Journal or something, but make it part of your homework to stay on top of what's investable and other people in your area.
I'd like to expand on something that you said earlier because I think it's really relevant to some of the kind of questions we've gotten so far. And that is that, Heather was talking about networking and getting to know people and working with people that have a similar mindset. I'd like to expand on that and tell you that the best way to have a good idea is to have a lot of ideas, right? So if you think you have this one good idea that's going to be the basis of your entrepreneurial career, that's probably not going to be the case. Okay, so at this stage where you don't have, probably most of you don't have like a huge history of successful companies behind you, the challenge is not to have a good idea, lots of good ideas. The challenge out there is to develop the kinds of friendships and working relationships and collaborations and mindset that is all about, we're going to have a stream of ideas coming in all the time. You guys are going to have streams of ideas coming into your head because you're going to start seeing the world in terms of unmet needs. You're going to start seeing the world in terms of there's opportunities out there. There's what we call pain points, things that are a big pain in the neck to everybody, and you're going to figure out a way to solve that problem for them. Or you're going to figure out ways to provide someone with a need, maybe with a benefit, maybe a benefit they don't even know that they want yet, but you know that they want it. And you're going to see those things all the time. You're going to go through your day and you're going to have 10 ideas. Once you get that kind of a mindset, 10 ideas for, well, why aren't we doing this? Why isn't there a business that does that? What about maybe creating this or providing that or solving this problem? So the ideas are going to come to you. The challenge is having the kind of friends and people you work with and people you go to school with and people that you just spend time with every day that are in that same kind of mindset with you. So the two of you are sitting around talking about, well, why is it that such and such is? No one's providing a business to solve this problem. And then you say, you know what? We've done 3 or 4 other businesses together. Let's do a business to solve this problem, see how it works out. And again, you're not talking about building General Motors here. You're talking about the 2 of you take something, or the 3 of you take something, and you figure out, can we sell, $100 worth of it, or $500 worth of it? And if you can, maybe that turns into something. Or maybe you invest $50 in the thing, and you're trying to sell $200 worth, and even at that super, super small scale, there are things that you can learn from that. And it doesn't work out, and so you move on to the next one. But remember, once you get in that mindset, you're thinking of those every day. As Heather said, it's all about starting to develop the relationship with people who think that same way, and starting to develop the friendships and understanding this person's great at sales, this person's great at explaining things, this person's great at motivating people, this person's great at managing a process. And then you'll know how you can call upon each other. as you tend to get better at it.
And you people are young, do not burn bridges, because you never know where something is going. Just leave it there.
And I'd just extend that to a little bit too, from the side of like when you're starting something, you want to create relationships with people, kind of peers building something, but also like potential strategic partners. So like you may be building something that's in technology, but this is your audience, you have an audience pre-built in because it's an area of interest. So be like really diverse in who you can pull in, because there's also maybe people who end up funding you, as well as people who give you advice on how to make this better. So it doesn't need to be someone who's like a peer, it can be people that you come to. And I mean, it's really easy if you come with sophisticated questions to get answers from people who are much more advanced in their career path than you'd expect but have time.
Make sure you get a reputation for being honest, too. Really. I mean, because you can lie one time and get somebody's money, but you can't do it twice.
Well, I'm just going to go beyond what you said, basically. But I do spend an awful lot of time as a mentor and advisor. I mean, come to me with ideas, we'll talk through them, we'll listen to what you have to say, I will give you some thoughts and direction and guidance. I'm not doing it for you. It's not my job. Your job is to do it. And that's really, in many cases, the difference. Those we talked about before, I talked about before about 24/7, every day of the year. It's beyond that. It's those people that will get on the internet, pick up the phone, talk to people, and they're going to go and get it done. They have an idea for a product. They're going to figure out how to get a CAD drawing. They're going to go find out how to get a prototype. They're going to find the resources. They're going to talk to people till people absolutely will just do something for them because they won't shut up.
Find the relevant
I mean,
grants
it's
and apply for them, right?
it's really, that's what it's about. That's what real entrepreneurs are about. That's what the profile of person that we want to invest in is about. Somebody that gets it done. I have met people from here and other schools that had ideas, and they got it done. It was like, it amazed me. It's like, how did you get from here, and how did you find this, and how did you get a prototype manufactured, and how did you find a distributor, and how did you... It's like, but some people just get it done. That's what it takes.
And you just are like, that, it's amazing.
That's,
like,
I'm all in for that person.
Like, in 4 months, you got a prototype, you talk to the FDA or whatever.
Yeah.
You didn't find the relevant grants and apply for them. There's a grant for you and everything somewhere, too. So just, shaking the trees, pounding the ground, meeting the people, building the connections. Because, we have a lot of people who come to us and say, well, like, will you fund this or will you fund that? And in very limited instances, our office has small, and I just forget I even said this, it is exceedingly rare that we will. And it is almost on principle, because that is not our role. Our role is to help collect IP, to help get you feedback, to help get people involved, to help get a license deal done. If you can't get funding and a team, etc., I'm not doing anybody any good by giving them a small parcel of money at the beginning. It's kind of like tough love for or something.
Along with the idea of being a can-do person, which is absolutely the number one thing. Get in the habit of being a can-do person, even when you're operating with limited information. Even when you're not really exactly sure what the right thing is to do or how the system works or whatever. Because the secret that you learn, you guys have probably already figured this out, but it took me a little while to figure it out, is that everybody's confused. Everybody is operating with less than ideal information. Even people like us that sit up, I'll speak for myself, because you two seem very smart. But all three of you seem very smart. But we sit up and give you guys advice. Half the time I don't know what the heck is going on. And you have to, because and that means you're pushing yourself. If you already know everything, then you're not expanding yourself. You're not learning new. The second you start learning new things, learning about a new industry, or learning about new technology, or meeting new people, now all of a sudden you're operating with incomplete information. And you have to just sort of make that part of your mindset that, yes, I'm only going to, you don't want to go in there only understanding 2% of what's going on, but if you can understand 80% of what's going on, you're going to be fine.
And when you don't know something, admit it, too. And this goes back to being trustworthy. Don't stand in a room full of people and assert something that you either know is not true or that you are not sure is true. I'm not sure is a great answer. I'm not sure. Here's what I think. Here's what I think. And it's based on this. Because no matter what you say, the investors are going to get out their paper and they're going to come to their own conclusion anyway, number one. And number two, you just really don't want to seem like you're not a totally honest, transparent person who considers yourself a full partner with the investors in so much as if it doesn't succeed, everybody goes down. You're not just there to trick them into spending money. Makes you seem approachable and partnerable.
While we're handing out free advice, let me give you one more piece of advice.
I'm going to charge.
And that is, there was a book that came about 15, 20 years ago, you guys might have heard of, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it was about a young man coming of age and wanting to learn about entrepreneurship and learn about business in general. And without going into the whole book, it's an interesting book, but without going into the whole book, one of the interesting pieces of advice that the Rich Dad gave him was, if you're interested in a specific industry, or if you're interested in a specific type of work, go work for somebody who's in that line of work. Just go. If you're interested in a fabrics business, go work for someone's fabrics business. You're going to get a great education in that industry. You're going to see all the things that are going wrong. You're going to see all the opportunities that are there. You're going to see all the things that they're doing inefficiently, and you're going to be getting paid while you're getting this free education in this industry that you really care about. And my guess is if you're here, you probably have certain types of work, certain industries, certain types of products and services that particularly interest you. Go work for someone who does that, and tell them right up front, I'm here to learn. I'm a student, or I'm a person who is starting off my career, and I want to learn about this industry. They'll be happy to have you, and you learn about it, and then it's amazing if you're there with the kind of mindset where you're trying to be a can-do person, solve problems, look for new solutions, look for better ways to do things. You're going to come up with, at the end of the day, you're going to have a list of, wonder why they don't do this, or imagine if they changed the product a little bit like this, it would make such a big difference, or whatever. And that's another way to really learn about an industry that particularly interests you. I think you did a lot of that early on.
Actually, it's funny you said that. That was my first company that I launched. I actually worked for a company in the industry, became the general manager for that company, and left there and started my own company in the industry. Your point is well taken. I didn't start out to do that. That wasn't my plan going in, but it turned out to be the way I launched my first company.
And this is so much of Jefferson's innovation push. We want to hear what doctors see going wrong. We want to hear what nurses see going wrong. We also want to know what janitors see going wrong. We want to know what the people who run our HVAC systems see going wrong. Because there is no innovation without a problem. You have to be fixing something, some need. There has to be a product somebody wants to buy, and they will buy it for a reason. They're hungry, they're bored, they're tired, they're losing money, usually a good one. All of those things, and you won't know what those things are unless you are truly intercalated into an industry in a meaningful way. You can go to school forever, but you won't learn anything. Say it's okay. Just network while you're in school. And I would say, too, if somebody can't afford to have you work for them, you could also offer to, volunteer. Get an internship. I used to take interns all the time. I found I want to make it a meaningful experience for them so I don't have the bandwidth anymore, but, you'll find somebody who will because you're a free employee. And as long as they're giving you an education, then you're getting, that's the balance. Don't volunteer for somebody who treats you like crap. Volunteer for somebody who understands that part of the bargain is that they give you something meaningful to put on your resume. And never.
I heard an interview with Jimmy Iovine, and he was talking about how he wanted to get into he's a big music producer, and he wanted to get into that business. And he was a kid, and he loved music, and he just started hanging out. And he went to this recording studio, and he said, "Can I work here?" And they're like, "What do you know how to do?" And he was like 19, he didn't really understand what to do, and he said, "I don't know, I just want to work here." And they said, "Well, you can clean up, and you can help restock the supplies when those artists come in." And it was a studio in New York, and they had some nice, interesting artists come in. And so he's like, "I just want to be there." And he got to know people, and then he became like the guy who would bring in like coffee or Coca-Cola, whatever, when you do the thing. And one time he had to bring in tea for someone, and he was bringing in tea. It was John Lennon. And he ended up giving John Lennon a cup of tea, and the guy liked him and said, "Why don't you keep coming back and be my tea guy?" And he was, for a certain number of weeks or months, John Lennon's tea guy. Until one day, the guy who was the recording engineer for John Lennon was out or doing something, and Jimmy Iovine, while he was, because he loved this whole recording studio thing, was always sitting there watching what the recording engineer was doing and kind of keeping track. Lisa and I can do it, I'll get on the board and do it. And they all kind of laugh, and they're like, sure, give it a try. And so he's today, he's I think pushing several $100 million and one of the most influential people in music business today. So it started pretty early, but if you know Eminem, Dr. Dre, that whole crowd, that's all. So anyway, there's a million little stories like that of getting started in something that you love, but it's because you love it.
So Seth,
Do you guys have any last questions? Well, thank you. It's amazing how Ritu had to leave so long ago, but managed to sit through the whole class.
Thank you for staying. I'd love to, can you have a card? Yeah, okay. You can send me like a... I'd probably buy some good clothes and start off.
Thank you all for coming out today.